All right, guys, how's everybody doing today? It's, I think it's Saturday, right? No, is it today? Yeah, today is Saturday. Mind blown. Anyway, I wanted to come on today in our 31 Days of Prevention series as we're nearing the end of October and bring you this little word of inspiration. As you know, this is our time to come together to share information and inspiration as well as motivation to increase the awareness and prevent future and ongoing domestic violence. For those of you who may not be familiar, my name is Marci Batiste. I am the founder and executive director here at 9 Seconds, where we truly want to foster freedom for women. Domestic violence can be extremely isolating and demoralizing, and so helping women to find their freedom is certainly important to us. We're a nonprofit organization. We have a heart-centered mission for our domestic violence prevention work. And we typically take non-traditional approaches, which is why you see some of the messages that you see coming from me. Much of our work is about digging down to the source, getting to the root of the what creates the environment for abuse. So taking a look at the generational system that the abuse stems from. And in order to do that, a lot of the work for recovery and for prevention comes through your mindset. And so this message today actually was kind of a personal aha for me this week, right? I realized I was on a phone call yesterday or the day before, and I was talking to someone from back home. And I was listening throughout the conversation. We're talking about the pandemic and, different things that are going on in the world today. And I was just listening to the individual's mindset. Everything that she said had a negative undertone to it, a negative connotation to it. And to the point where, for me, the majority of my environment and the people that I allow close to me all have positive mindsets. Don't get me wrong, we all go through things, right? We all go through things. So I'm not suggesting that we don't have down days or anything, but this wasn't the case with this individual. This is just her standard mindset. And so we don't have a lot of communication and a lot of conversations. But it just dawned on me this week that the reason why we don't talk as much as we maybe used to at one point is because it's exhausting to me. It's truly exhausting to me. And I was trying to figure out, it just occurred to me why that is. I was trying to figure out, like, why is this just a thing for me? Or why am I struggling with this? And the thing of it is I realized that not only are we in different places geographically, but we're in different places mentally. And I was thinking about the power of exposure, right? So I had that conversation, and then throughout the week, I've done some different things. I've gotten out of my office, which I tend to kind of barricade myself in here, especially, as we're building up 9 Seconds, I tend to barricade myself in my office. But this week I was very intentional and went outside of the office to work outside of my office, shifted the environment, shifted the atmosphere a little bit. And it occurred to me that the thing was, the differentiator between me and this other individual was exposure. It was the exposure. And I realized that had I stayed back in Iowa, in the environment that I was in, surrounded with the mindsets that I was surrounded by, and not to say anybody's a bad person. This is not what this is about. It's just a different mindset. Once you expose yourself to other environments, other cultures, other thought leaders, that type of thing, and you begin to shift and grow as a result of your exposure, if the people who you once were associated with no longer, or they're not growing, they're not expanding, they're not they're not in any sort of path or trajectory towards personal development, self-improvement, those types of things, then you tend to grow apart. And so I mean, I've always known that exposure changed me, but I didn't realize the magnitude until I was having this conversation this week. And I'm just like, wow, it was one of those things where, have you ever had a talk with somebody where no matter what you say, their comeback is negative? What they have to say, there's nothing that you can say, no argument that you can make, nothing that you can do or say to change their mindset to a positive realm. And, like I said, a lot of the conversation was about COVID. And I know everybody's kind of got their own feelings and their own vibes about vaccines and COVID and this, that, and the other thing and politics. And I really don't give two craps. I really don't. I believe everybody's entitled to their own opinions, their own thoughts, and their own feelings about whatever, right? But when you're so caught up in being right in your negative mindset that you're not open to the possibility of something different from a positive perspective, to me, that becomes problematic. Like, you have to be able to understand and you don't have to agree with what someone else says, but you have to be open to hear what they're saying, right? And I realized for me that exposure has changed me so much between, leaving home in Iowa, coming to Arizona, living here for 11 years, moving to Dallas, moving to Salt Lake, back to Dallas, back to Phoenix, traveling abroad. This individual's never done any of those things. She's always lived, she was born and raised and lived her whole life in Iowa, basically in Des Moines, our hometown, right? And it occurred to me, like, that's why we don't see eye to eye anymore, because the things that I think about and the things that I'm doing are beyond her comprehension. And so there's just nothing for us to talk about, essentially. So the conversations tend to stay very, very surface. And, even when you're sharing good news with somebody, if that's not their experience, it's hard for them to even receive your good news, right? And so I bring this up from a standpoint of no matter what you're going through, it's hard to see the possibilities of something better if you don't shift your exposure. As long as you're caught if you're the picture inside the frame, it's hard to see the frame, right? You can only see so far. You have to broaden your exposure. You have to open up yourself. You have to open up your mind. Move around, travel. And I'm not even saying you got to leave your state or your city, but even within the confines of the city that you're in, you can change your exposure. Let me give you an example. There's a Starbucks on 32nd Street and McDowell or Thomas, one of the two. There's another Starbucks on 32nd Street in Lincoln. If you know Phoenix, those are geographically maybe 5 miles apart, 7 possibly, 5 to 7 miles apart. The mindsets and the cultures, the environments, the people that go they're both Starbucks. They both have the same setup aesthetically. They both sell the same products, but they draw in a completely different type of people, as far as socioeconomic, as far as just even listening to the conversations, right? That's what I'm talking about. If you only go to your corner store, try going to a store across town. If you only eat at, a certain restaurant, if it's a chain, go to one of their restaurants across town. Go somewhere and do something that you've never done before and change your exposure, because it's easy to get trapped and lose sight of possibilities if you're stuck in the mundane, and particularly if you're in an unhappy situation, an unhappy circumstance, or obviously an abusive relationship. Changing your perspective can restore hope. It can show you, you know what? all that I see every day is not all that there is. There's a whole big world out there. Without ever leaving your city, you can change your exposure, and you can change your ability to see the positive. You know, like I said, it's hard to see possibility if all you see around you is misery, struggle, and pain. I'm just reading B's comment. Exposure expands one's experience and perspective. Forever grateful for the opportunity to live abroad. Yeah, B, you know, you've been all over the place. And so you probably know even better than me, like, how much different every single place is, and how much you learn in every new environment. And, you know, sometimes we think that it has to be a big thing, like it has to be like this huge move or some crazy expensive vacation. But literally, guys, changing your exposure can literally mean taking an Uber across town. It can mean, you know, riding the train if you've never ridden the train before. Go sit at some high-end resort. You know, I went and worked out in Scottsdale the other day, and I went and worked up in North Phoenix the other day, just to get myself out of my environment. And not because I was feeling stuck, but I just know that if you stay stuck inside your environment, then it stifles creativity, it stifles hope, it stifles positivity. And then when I was having that conversation, I was just like, man, like, this conversation is draining to me, because there was no substance to it. There was literally no substance to it. It's somebody that I love with all my heart, but there's literally no substance there. The love is there, like, love her to death, love her to life, but we have nothing to talk about. And even, like I said, even when I'm sharing things and sharing good news, she can't even comprehend what that means or what that's like, because she's always stayed inside of her box. So that's the message for today, guys. Just expanding your horizons, changing your exposure, getting outside of your norm can have a massive impact on your ability to see other perspectives and to be able to see the potential and the possibility. I keep telling y'all walking into your winning season. 2022 is about to be your winning season. And if you are still sitting in the same spot, still stuck doing the same things you've always done, hanging out with the same people you've always hung out with, you're going to miss those opportunities that are waiting for you in your winning season, because you're not willing to move. You're not willing to shift. You're not willing to change. You're not willing to even try. You have to change your exposure. You have to get out. And that's right, B. Everybody can't go up with you on the journey. Everybody's not meant to. And you have to find a way to love people in the space that they're in. Like this individual, I know she's not going to go. You know, I haven't even told anybody this. I just was recognized, and I'll be receiving an honorary doctorate in November. And so I was sharing this with this individual, and she's like, oh, that's great, congratulations. But she didn't have any idea what that really means. You know, and I'm trying to explain, oh, it's for my work that I've been doing with women and kids for the last 20 years. And, you know, all the mentorships that I've done, and the kids academies and the kids bank, and, you know, my domestic violence work. You know, it's recognizing 20 years worth of work. But she doesn't, thanks B. She doesn't understand, because in Iowa, this is the mindset. You go to school, you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you get a husband, you have babies, and you get a job somewhere in between there, and then you stay at that job for as long as possible. If you lose that job, you go get another job. I never even had a conversation about entrepreneurship until I moved to Arizona, and I was almost 40 years old. Like, seriously? That's the exposure I'm talking about. Being able to see and hear, you know, social media is a beautiful thing because it exposes you to a whole wide world of new people and new possibilities. But again, if your timeline is stuck with all the old people and all the same people that are doing all the same things that they've always done, you're even limited in your exposure on social media. Like, you have to connect with new people. Hey, Adrian, you have to connect with new people. You have to open yourself up. Like I said, it's easy to get stuck in the mundane. If you're in an unhappy circumstance, an unhappy situation, you don't like your job, you don't like your significant other, you on the verge of a divorce, but you're too afraid to say it. Whatever the case may be, change your exposure, change your circle. If it means deleting people off of social media, delete them. It's social media. Who cares? I've got friends that I've had for years and years and years. A couple of them were just like, look, I talk to you every day. We do not need to be friends on social media. And that's okay. Because we don't lose any of the connection, right? If anything, it's better because it's always a one-on-one personal conversation, right? You have to change your exposure, guys. Like, it really dawned on me when I shared with her about me getting my doctorate that she didn't know what that meant. She didn't understand the significance. She didn't understand the doors that can be opened now as a result of that. So, and like I said, like, just the narrow-mindedness. Like, a lot of the conversation was about COVID, but the narrow-mindedness just blew me away. I'm like, if I would have stayed where I was, I never would be where I am today. I wouldn't be an author. I wouldn't have never written a movie script. I wouldn't have never started multiple companies. I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. There's so many things that I wouldn't be. I can't even fathom what I would be. I can't even fathom what that would look like. Like, I just remember back to my mindset when I got to Arizona, and it was horrible. It was just like hers. It was exactly like hers. I lived in a black and white world. Like, there were no gray areas. And now every single day I move in the gray areas. That's where I stay, is in the gray area. Anything too far, any direction, like, I'm always looking for the next opportunity. I'm always looking for the ability to expand my perspective, to learn something new. And you can learn from a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Adrian, most people don't like change. They want change, but not the feeling that comes with it. People are terrified of change. They are terrified of change. And one of the biggest detractors to change and people's fear of exposure is that they'll leave people behind. And you will. Like, I would be lying to you if I said you could completely shift your mindset, alter your whole exposure, and everybody's going to be able to follow along. They're not going to understand it, right? They're not going to understand it. You don't have to explain to nobody what God is doing in your life. It's your assignment. It's on you. It's up to you. But even that conversation is hard to have with somebody who doesn't have a mindset to understand and be comfortable maneuvering in an element of change. Because they'll miss their blessing every single time because they didn't want to change. They didn't want to be open to the possibility and the potentials that are out there. People are afraid of the responsibility that comes with learning and maturing and growing. Like, you can't learn a whole bunch of new things about yourself and then stay the same. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You like, I don't even know of a way that would be possible for you to stay the same after you start on a self-development, personal development journey. When you start digging down and figuring out, what's important to me, what do I like, what do I want, what makes me happy? People are afraid to even find out what really makes them happy. People settle and live in contentment rather than happiness, because happiness they fear will result in having to leave some people behind. Hey, Thea. And you will. But here's what I'm going to tell you. In that element of change, there is a beautiful thing that happens, because not only do you learn and you grow and you start becoming something more and different, you can inspire other people, because just as many people that want to stay set and stuck in their existence as is, there are other people who want to change, who desire change, who are ready for change. They just need to see somebody else go first. And so sometimes you can actually become that light that inspires someone else without ever even trying, right? So that's my message for today, guys. Thanks for y'all who jumped on. Do something different this week. The Sunday starts the next week. Make a commitment to yourself to change your exposure, even in some small way. Like I said, if it's eating at a different restaurant than you normally eat at, going to somewhere you've never been, seeing a show that you've never seen, maybe you, I don't know, go out to the Musical Instrument Museum. That's, an attraction here in Phoenix. Do anything, but make it something different, something that you've never done, and watch for people, watch for how they're moving, how you feel. Pay attention to how you feel about the experience. And then if you want to, let's ping me and let me know, like, what did you do and how did it go? So that's my message for today, guys. As always, if you hear something, share something. So if I said anything that maybe struck a chord with you, or you feel might inspire somebody else, please share the message out, because you just never know who's on your timeline, who's seeing what you're sharing and what you're posting, and who just needs a positive word. Like I said, there's a whole lot of people who are stuck but don't want to stay stuck, and they just need permission to move forward. So this is it. This is your permission to increase your exposure. Do something different this week. And in the meantime and in between time, stay happy, stay well, stay blessed, and most importantly, stay safe. And I'll talk to y'all again tomorrow for another 31 days of prevention message. Take care, guys.